We want to thanks to Malaysia Digital Chamber of Commerce to be our latest support. So the next thing that we wanted to, we are glad to invite Mr. Shamil and his team to actually conduct this tutorial session. Okay, so Mr. Shamil is the Vice President of Orange Cloud. So he will take around 2 to 3 hours for this session. So I will hand this over to Mr. Shamil. So Mr. Shamil, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Very good morning to all of you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. So the objective of today's session is typically to get you a head start in terms of the platform, and also to answer any of your questions, the burning questions that you might have, just in case. But all said and done, at the end of the day, we are quite happy to answer and support queries throughout your hackathon sessions. So feel free to do that. So like Eric mentioned, Orange Cloud is in fact the IP of the product eMOBIQ, which is a no-code mobile application development platform that supports cross-platform mobile application development. Has a high recommended notion from Gartner for being a promising RMAT tool, and this is the way to go in terms of where industries, where enterprises are digitally transforming, and the indications or the trends say that nearly 70% of all enterprise application development will be on such platforms like low code and no code. So those of you who are in this, looking towards this is something which definitely you should focus on. And I'm sure like you'll see the effect of that in terms of Orange Cloud's eMOBIQ. That is absolutely no coding whatsoever. So it's typically drag and drop, and you're good to go with a cross-platform mobile app at the end of the day. So without much ado, I will also introduce you to my colleague, Vetri, who is the consultant, the lead developer for Orange Cloud. And what the way we're going to position this session, the orientation session, is I will be taking the first half of the session where I will just give a very brief introduction to the environment, the platform, and navigating around the platform. And of course, when it comes to the actuals, the core logic development and other aspects, we will have Vetri to take over from there on. And if there's any technical questions, feel free to ask. Vetri will be able to handle that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share my screen. All right. So what you see here is actually a Chrome browser, and that's where typically eMOBIQ as a platform works. It's compatible with Chrome browser, and of course, why Chrome browser? Because it's widely used, or the most widely used browser. And in terms of a platform, it's on the cloud, so there's no need to download the software anytime, or as what you normally do in other applications. And you have been given, probably most of you have been given this URL. So this is typically the URL, but if there's any changes in the process of where we try to recommission this instance on another server, then we will share it with you. But don't worry, your work will not get affected at any instant. So you can actually log in with this URL. So typically eMOBIQ, like what I just mentioned, works on this browser, the Chrome browser, and you, with your login credentials, you can actually log in. So what you'll be looking at is a screen, a dashboard screen. Well, these are things which probably you would have already come across, but this is a dashboard screen that shows the type of applications that have been built, or the different types of applications that have been built. If you see there's nothing in your side, it's probably because you're just starting to build your applications. Then you have some notification centers, some indications on the platform upgrades and fixes, as well as you also have something called a public store, an eMOBIQ store, or an e-store. So this is where you actually, when you publish your cross-platform mobile apps as well as your web app, it is published and put by default on these stores. So even if you do not have an enterprise Apple account or a Google account to put it on those public stores like Google stores and Apple stores, you still can end up like downloading the apps from the eMOBIQ public store. So typically I'm just looking at a simple as an example. Let's say I choose this. So this one is actually compiled for iOS as well as Android. And you can either use the QR codes to access and download these applications. So this is how your applications will also be. Plus, you also have the option to log these applications from unauthorized access. So that's another alternative you have. So I'm just going back to my first screen. So in a scenario where you would like to build an app, typically you would like to have the option, the idea of creating an application. So I'm just probably just creating an application. I call it hackathon. So in eMOBIQ, as we speak, we are currently having the option for you to compile it with different compilers. One is React Native and Cordova. The React Native compiler is in its beta testing, so we are still flexible using the full optimized Cordova compiler here. And this is an explanation that will appear on your description when you publish it on your stores. So this is just a test app you create. So what you're looking at is typically a screen that is called the work surface, or the design screen. And a very quick run through of this screen. So you have the option to actually, at the top left corner, you see the icon. You have the option to actually change the icon by actually clicking on it. Sorry, my mistake. Sorry, I was mistaken with the icon. Sorry. This is the app icon. So you can actually click on this app icon and change it. So you have the option to change the icon. So this becomes your app icon. So if assuming you were to save it and go back, you'll have this as your icon, just to let you know. So since we have already created this particular application, I just can click on the editor to go back to the work surface, or the area where I can start designing my application. So this particular icon, which I just clicked, will take you back to home. So these two are the same. This is the name of the application. This is the version. So if there's every time you compile the app and publish it with upgrades, there'll be automatic versioning. And this option for you to save. So in the eMOBIQ scenario, it's generally, since it's on the browser, you will be prompted to actually save your work before you refresh your screens. So it's always good to save your work, after every major change that you make on that particular page. Preview, the option to preview on the fly as you develop your applications. Build is to compile it and to either Android, iOS, or web. And download is after you have compiled it, you can actually download the IPA or the APK files, or the web HTML file if it's a web app, and commission it to whichever instance or stores that you would like to. So you can also seek options where you can choose help and tutorial. Now the left-hand side, so before anything else, the design, I mean, this particular screen has the option where you can actually design, develop, debug, you can preview, you can compile, you can publish. So all this happens on one integrated screen or one integrated development environment. So you don't need to switch screens to do things. And what you see here is the components that can be added onto the page when you build your applications. So I'll be going through that in a while. And you have, you know, every app that you build generally has pages. So you can actually see the pages that you actually create here in this list. And snippets is also a kind of page element. So we also have other things like the global configuration, the menu that shows global configuration, wherein you can actually set your default configurations. So one of the default configurations would be your default page. So when you have like 5 pages and you would like your first page to be your default page, then you just indicate it here and save. So that will be your default page. Likewise, you have other, you know, global properties that you can actually set. So I probably, let me check whether, yes, I'm just probably storing my Google API since I'm going to use it. So this is part of my, the value that I'm adding into the configuration. Language, I have the option to have multiple languages. So which means you can build multilingual apps, but with a default, you know, data set with translated, you know, values, which I'll be showing you in a while. And then you can publish your app. Once you've compiled it, you can lock your app. And services is where you can actually have many options to connect to different services. So these are some of these options. Like you have a local table, you can connect to any of the popular ERPs. You can also connect to either a SOAP or a RESTful, you know, API through here. You can connect to SQL, payment gateways, and the likes, Firebase, and the likes. So the external databases as well would be part of it. So the database is just a cloud database which sits inside the Orange Cloud instance. And typically we don't recommend, you know, unless and until there's a prototype kind of application, you use this, you use the staging database to store your local data, your data, and manipulate the application. So I'm not going to spend any time on this because usually it's recommended not to write directly or read directly from a database. So just to ensure that you don't get hacked, you know, when your application tries to access your database directly. So you normally do it through APIs and the likes. So then one more thing I would like to add is just to set the tone straight is eMOBIQ is generally a platform that focuses on objects. So when you talk about objects, although it's hidden, it's not really revealed out there. But if you really look at it, everything is an object, and every object has properties. And every object would have certain events. Sorry, every object would have some events associated with it. So those events can be triggered based on scenarios, and you can call functions according to the events that have been triggered. So just to sum it up, a page, for example, is an object, and you have the CSS properties associated with the page. The same goes with a label or a text box or any of those components. They're all objects with properties, all CSS properties, and you have events associated with each of those objects, depending on the object. So I'm going to get started. So what I would like you to focus here is on my left-hand side of my screen, like I said, I have a screen that shows pages option. Now you can actually add pages here. You can duplicate pages and you can delete pages using these icons. You can also add pages from here. So there's another additional icon that can allow you to add pages. And the next one is something to do with a wizard. So we have two types of wizards. One is a page wizard, one is a functional wizard. And by the way, in case you find me groggy, that's because I had a very early morning call at 3:30 and there was not much sleep after that. So pardon me for that. And of course, a media library to add your media content, then a copy and a paste option, plus a delete option to delete components. So typically, once you start using the platform, it's an acquired, you get an acquired experience. So it's a matter of just using the platform again continuously. You can start seeing, like real wonders happening on the screen with no need for any coding whatsoever. And just to set the expectations right, eMOBIQ is more focused on B2B scenarios. So, when you talk about user UI and user elements and user experiences, we don't focus too much on the consumer type of applications like Lazada, Facebook, and the likes. So this is where we actually focus using eMOBIQ for enterprises who can better their processes with mobile applications. So that's the focus area. So just in case you might wonder as you go along, why is it that you can't do certain things? So this is because of certain focus areas. So I'm going to just show you, like, when you start designing an app, you typically decide, like, okay, what are the pages you probably like you plan to have? How are the pages going to be organized? How are the pages going to be navigated from point to point? And what happens on each page? What are the functionalities that can be added into each page and the likes? So typically, with that kind of an understanding, you start building an app. So whenever you start building an app, your core end should be already in place. That's where you create pages to design a quick wireframe around the flow, and that's when you actually start adding more functionalities or logic into the app. So I'm going to just typically create a few pages. So what I want to do here is, okay, before I go in any further, I'll be probably sharing the slides for your reference, some videos for your reference, but not now. I don't want you to get distracted. So I'm going to share it at the fag end of this session. So just observe, and since it's recorded, you can always refer back to the recording as well. So I'm going to have a scenario where I'm going to have a few screens. So my first screen would be some sort of a welcome screen. Then I would probably, go to a screen that shows a set of menu options. And then from there, I probably would like to have, somebody selecting on each choice of the menu and going to different pages with different functionalities. So typically, that would give you a good head start of how to work around the platform as such. So to add a page, I just click on the plus. So my first page would be a splash screen. Then I'll probably add a second page, like a menu page. My third page is going to be probably on my menu page. So let's just try to see what's going to come on the menu so that we can accordingly build more pages. So I have two pages. If you notice on the left-hand side, so this is something which you might want to take note. On the left-hand side, you see the names of these pages, and the one that is active is highlighted in orange. So the one menu is the one that's actually the active page now. You see a blank screen and you can switch pages. You can, like what I said, you can select these and you can duplicate, you can delete and things like that. So all these group functions can be added as we go along. Now, if you notice on my on the same left portion of my screen, I also have something pop up like a layer option. Now, this is quite crucial for you to navigate between the different components or the different objects within a page. So in this case, I see something called page and the name of the page. So the name of the page is by default given by the system as PG and the name you gave. So PG menu is what you see there. And if you have other objects or elements underneath this or inside the page, you will see it also here. So it's kind of expandable and collapsible, as we add objects inside the page. Now, on my right-hand side is also an important area where you actually play around with the properties, the CSS properties of the object that is currently selected. So now, right now, the object that is currently selected is the page itself, the object page. And I can actually change a few properties. I'll just give you an example. So the name of the page is one property. And the title of the page, which I just entered when I added the page name, is here. So you can actually change anything over here by probably saying, I'll just put it as men. No offense meant. I'm not, a biased person, but just to show you that there's a difference. There you are. So you see on your left-hand side, the thing changes. So I'm just going to make it back to menu. And I want to change a few other things like background. So I just choose the color. So the moment I change, I see it happening there. And of course, I can change other things. Now, some of you might be good with HTML, CSS aspects. But for those who are not, and you want to know what exactly this particular element of the CSS properties stand for, you can actually click on these links. It will take you to a w3schools.com, where you can actually, based on what you clicked, you can actually try it out yourself. Like after you read through, you have the options to try things yourself. So you can actually click and you can actually do things yourself. Like, so for example, I just want to change this from, this is my, so I'm going to make it black, for example, and I run it. So probably black is not, maybe I just change it to red. So maybe I just change, I'm just toying with the idea of playing around with it. So maybe I chose the wrong one. So yes, so I have managed to change this so-called thing according to the CSS property here. So just to get an idea, like, when you play around with this, you have some idea of what these CSS properties are. And of course, color combinations and other things, you can always Google to see what kind of color combinations are, for what color you want to choose. So, but this is not what I want to put on my menu. So I want to put something else. So I'll start off with my splash screen. I'll leave my screen as it is. But just as a golden rule of the thumb, always remember that you don't want to put in a lot of effort and then not save it. So just save it to be on the safer side before you refresh, the screen refreshes and things like that. There is no shortcuts, like there's no Control X, Control C, Control V, or Shift and whatever the Mac users use. Or there is no undo options. So the only way you can actually undo is not save it. So you can actually refresh after making changes. You can refresh the screen so the changes are not affected. So coming back to our splash screen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just choose a template. So I have an option there to choose a template. And I'm going to just choose a default template. So let me just choose this. Now, when I drag, always remember that the objects or the items that you drag across to the page should be on the page that is active. So right now my splash screen is active by clicking on it, and that's when I can drag. If you are unable to drag, that means something is not active, like the page, or there's no page or something, which is not selected. So ensure that you have the active page before you drag and drop things onto the page, just to let you know. And then, of course, as far as the the menu page is concerned, probably we'll just choose a simple menu option, not spending too much of time on this so that I don't waste your time as well. So I have a menu template, and probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the label. So this particular value, I can either change it on the right hand side, or in the case of a label, I can just double click and change. Sorry. So I'm going to refresh my screen because I did something wrong there. So you see that it's not saved. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to drag this and drop it. So here I'm going to just double click and change. Basically, I can change it on the fly. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to have an application that focuses on myself, where I'm going to talk about information about myself or my university. And I'm also going to have something, maybe have a native device functionality like camera or something like that. And maybe something to do with a signature option. Maybe the next one should be something to do with location option, and maybe the next one maybe I will just put share option. So the last one, I will just think it over. So I'm not sure what to put. Okay, maybe a settings option to change the language. So maybe I'll just put this here. And the share. So I have managed to change the labels. Now I just need to change the images. So for the images, what I'm going to do is I can just double click on the image, and I have the option to open up the media library. So I'm not going to spend, I have the option to actually choose from my laptop, but I'm going to just use from the public folder. So there's two folders. One is an app folder and a public folder. So I'm going to choose. Okay, so there was supposed to be a few images, which I don't see. Anyway, so this is forcing me to go back to the selected files. So I'm going to just choose a few of that. So probably I'll choose, since I have it with me, I'll probably just choose all this and bring it in. Then I will need to upload it. So once it's uploaded, it goes into the icons, public icons. And I want the first one to be selected. So I choose the first one and select it. So I have information. I double click. The next one should be maybe a camera. The next one should be something on signatures. I don't know whether I'll have a signature. So I'm just going to, probably I'll just use this. Then a location. maybe settings. So I don't know what to do with the settings. Yes, I'll just choose something for the time being. And share. Okay, I'll just choose this. So we have a screen that has, a well-defined, set of menu options. And if you notice, maybe I'll just reduce the resolution of my screen a bit. So it's more easier to navigate here. So if you notice on my left-hand side, just under the layer, you suddenly see that there's a lot of activity happening. Now, the reason is because the page has, initially, this is how the page was. It was an empty page. The moment I added a template, the template comes along with different objects. So one of the objects was a panel, and a panel is generally meant for grouping components, different other objects together. So this is for placement and alignment and things like that. So it kind of groups, and you can work around with the panel. So if you notice, there's a lot of panels and sub panels. So under each panel, you get sub panels. And if you notice, under the sub panels, you might see the image. So for example, if I want to do anything with this particular image, how do I know where it is? So the easier way out is to see on your left-hand side where you see the layering. You can actually see the image, which is under a panel, which is something called panel main body left or something like that, and which is under another panel called panel main body 1, which is under another panel called panel main body. And these are all categorized under the same level as panel main. So basically, it's a combination of different panels just to make sure that everything is in place. So now the question is, if I want to change, let's say, the background of this, so I need to know whether it's the background of the page, the entire object, or whether it's the background of a specific panel. So when I choose, for example, I choose this background by choosing the page object at the top level. I try to change the color. Let's see whether the color changes. So I'm just choosing something like this. And if you notice, I've changed the color, but nothing happens to that. The reason being that this color is not actually impacting the page. The panel that is already there is sitting on top of that page object. So it's sitting inside that page object and it's covering the other option. So I choose the panel, that's the one that is under the main page menu. And if you notice, this panel has got some color options. So now you notice that when I change the color changes. So this is a little bit of way that things are getting more organized in that sense. So whatever I've done, I make sure I save my work. So this panel is the main panel, and you notice the menu is coming under a different panel. So how do I know where the panel which contains the menu label is? So when I click on that particular menu label, I know which panel it's under. So that gives you an indication. So if I want to change anything related to this, I can change it accordingly. So I change the background color of this panel to something else, although it looks odd. So anyway. So always remember, whatever you do, make sure you save your work. And now let's try to probably preview our page. So before I preview my page, I should make sure that my first default page should be set. So I'm going to just go back to global configurations, and I'm going to change my default page to the menu page, just to show you that the menu page pops up first. So I save this and I preview my page. So my default page is my menu page. Now, if I want to see the same thing, the impact of it on my device, I can actually scan this QR code to see how it appears on my device that's used for scanning this QR code. So it appears as per that particular device, right? All right, so let's go back. So to go back to the main screen, you just come back to eMOBIQ home. This brings you back to the first starting design screen. Now you can actually, we want to add a little bit of element. Okay, so if you notice, my splash screen has vanished because I did not save it at that point. So this is just a classic indication of why I stress on the importance of saving. So I just bring it back, I drag it and save it. So now I would like my splash screen to be my first screen. I save and preview. So my splash screen is going to be my first default screen. Now what I want to do is, I want to make sure that I have a splash screen that displays, like, it can be a branding advertisement or something like that, and then pauses for a few, seconds, and then it moves on to the next page. So it transitions to the second page. So to do that, if you may remember me telling you that every object has got a property associated with it, or a set of properties associated with it. And objects also do have events that are triggered accordingly. So in the case of the page element or the page object, the events that can happen to a page can be when the page loads, when the page refreshes, when the page, like there's a scroll up and down and stuff like that. So these are some of the events that can be associated with a page. Same goes with a button. It can be a click, an event can be a click, a press, or a long press, or whatever, right? So typically, these are some of the things that are associated with each object. So in this case, what I want to do is, when the page loads, this particular page, when it loads, I want this page to be displayed for a few seconds. And then automatically, I want the page control to be transferred to the menu page. So in order to do that, like how you see, so the page is to be selected. So in other words, you make sure that not the panel is selected, the page object is selected. And now you need to put in some actions. So the action that you put in is found here. That is, after selecting the object, you make sure that next to the properties, you have the action. And in this place, I have, some events that is relevant to this object that was chosen. So if you notice, I have something called a visual logic flow screen that pops up when I click actions. And over here, I can actually try to add my logic. So eMOBIQ has got about 800 plus functions. So all these are functions. So when a particular event is triggered, you normally call a function. That is, based on an event, you call a function to do something. So here we have about, a few hundred functions. And what I want to do is typically set, a timer that counts from 1 to 3000 milliseconds and pauses the screen to keep loading to keep the status of the page load as it is until the 3000 seconds are completed. Sorry, milliseconds are completed. So I have a function, something related to time. So I can actually, under action, I can just type time. So these are all the relevant time related functions. So there's a time function called set timer out, which I can actually drag and drop. So when I drag and drop into that black connector, I have the function displayed. So the moment I click on the function, now, when you call a function, now why I'm going back to the basics is because some of you might, I'm not sure about everyone's understanding of calling functions, passing values and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So when you call a function based on an event, so in this case, the event is a load, the page load. You call a function, set timeout, and you pass a parameter. So certain functions will require parameters, like you need to pass some value. And after the function is completed, there will be some sort of a return. That means some sort of a result that is passed back after the function has completed its job. So in this case, in the set timeout option, I have like 3 parameters. Not all of them are, mandatory, but I'll need to say timeout. For example, I need to pass the time in milliseconds that is to be set for counting. So here in this case, I'll just put it at 3000 milliseconds or 3 seconds. And the rest, okay, when you say persistent, that's something to do with, after this, if the control transfers to another page, and if this previous function is still ongoing, it might continue on to the next page as well. So this is not very mandatory. It's by default, it's false. So we just leave it at that. So I click save. Now I'm not done with this. So I just don't want the screen to just pause. So let's just try it out. So I'm going to click preview. And the screen just pauses. So nothing happens after that because it's already counting 3000 milliseconds. But I would like to add another function, that is after this function is done. I would like to add another function, maybe something like a dialog box which just pops up. This is just to show that the function has been completed. And I'm just dragging it and dropping it into that box. And here I'm asked for a option whether this function should be on the same level as the previous function. In other words, both the functions will operate simultaneously. Or should this function be only started after the successful completion of the first one? In other words, after the set timeout has returned true or returned a value, then the next function starts. So in this case, I'm saying yes, only after the set timeout has counted 3000 seconds, 3000 milliseconds, it's going to come here. So here in the info dialog, you have a few things like a title. There's a dialog box with a title. So I'm just saying function test or something like that. And I have a content. So this is what appears inside that dialog box. And probably I'll just disable the timer, and the rest, like you have, the details are all, typically found on the help tutorial. So I'm not going to go into each and every one of that just for the records, but I'm just saving this and let's preview this. So it's supposed to count 3000 milliseconds. Oh, sorry, 3000, something is wrong. Okay, so I might require Vetri. Vetri, are you there?
Yes, Shamil.
So can you tell me what I did wrong there?
Okay, can you click the set timer? Oh, 3000. 3000 meaning is 3 seconds.
3
okay.
seconds.
Okay, you created the info dialog on that yes callback, right?
That's right.
Can you click the info dialog?
Yeah.
Title, content, disable timer. Okay. Can you make it disable timer as false? By default, it's false, right?
Okay.
Can you save and execute? Okay. Instead of dialog box, info dialog box, you directly use that page to navigate. Let's see.
Okay. So I'm just replacing this. I'm just deleting that. So how did I delete? Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So to delete anything here, you have some icons that can allow you to copy, paste, and delete the logic that's being actually built here. So you can actually do that. So I just deleted using that. So what I'm going to do is after the set timeout, I'm probably going to navigate. So I just put a go to page, that's go, and there's a button, there's a function called go to page. So I drop that in and I do the same thing. So I say set timeout. Yes. So which means after the set timeout function is completed, after completing 3 seconds of count, it will go to a page. So the go to page will be based on a specific page. So you can actually choose from the drop down list. So there's a parameter that you need to pass there. So that's PG menu, which is the page that's supposed to go to. So I click save and I preview. Something is wrong with my logic. It's on the, oh, I know what's the mistake. Okay, I know what's the mistake. So if I'm sorry about that. So the thing is, I was talking so much about the event called load that is on the page load. But if you notice, I have put it on the page click. In other words, when I preview, I need to click on the page to actually go to the next page or to whatever thing. So, but it's supposed to be on the page load. So the event is not on the click, it's supposed to be on the load. So over here, I'm supposed to actually fill in those information. So how do I can either redo the whole thing all over again, or I can just go back to click, select the set timeout function. I can copy it and I can go to the load event, select that. So you make sure that you click inside that black dot and then paste. So what happens now is typically the page load. On the page load, there's a timer which counts. So in this case, I need to put the value, and after counting 3000 milliseconds, it will go to this page. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to preview. So it goes to the, I think my laptop timer has gone crazy. So it's taking more than 3 seconds. But anyway, so just to let you know that this page automatically pops up after the function has been completed. So basically what we're trying to do here is adding functions. So now I go back to my menu and I need a few pages. So when I click on the information page, maybe I need some information. Maybe it displays information about something. So an information page, maybe add a video with that information, maybe add some elements like images and whatever, right? So you can actually have that particular page with contact numbers and stuff like that. Then you can have a page for the camera. So when the camera icon is chosen, when this particular selection is made, it will go to the camera. So we need a few pages. So we need pages for info, we need pages for camera, we need pages for signature, location, and setting. So I'm going to create all these pages just to make it simpler. So this was what I should have done in the very beginning. So I have a page called info. I have a page called signature. And maybe I will not spend that much of time creating all, maybe location. So I have a few options. So now the question is, I probably, when somebody chooses this, like for example, clicks on this, I want to make sure that anywhere within this area. So if you notice, there's a dotted line around this particular image as well as the label. So this is the panel. How do I know it's a panel? On the left-hand side, where you see the layer, you see the panel is highlighted. And when you expand that by clicking on that, you see there's inside that panel, there's an image and a label. So this is the image and the label. So rather than clicking only on the image and expecting somebody to press that or click that, you know, it's always better to have the entire panel that contains both the image and the label. So if anybody clicks within this area, it should be still good to go. Now I need to, when somebody does this, I need to go to a page called information page. So how does one go to navigate between pages? We already have seen this go to page. So I just can drag this since it's already here and drop it in and choose the name of the page. So when I click on this, I just choose the name of the page. So it's going to go to info page. Likewise, I can do the same. In other words, for all the different pages. So I try to make sure that I set all my navigation options set. So I have, okay, there's no camera page. So probably I'll have to create a camera page. So on my menu, when I select this, it should go to the camera page. I save. Same goes with my signature. So just make sure that the whole panel is selected. So how do you set that? Either you can select it by decisively clicking on a specific area so that the whole panel is selected, or you can go back to, you can click on the image, choose the panel that the image is contained in, and then choose it. So the same thing happens. So this is a repetition. If you notice, this particular navigation option is a repetition. So I can just probably just copy this and keep it in the clipboard. So the next time I can actually start using it. So save my location page. I will just paste. So the thing, like what I said, is unfortunately, we don't have the options for say shortcuts, but you'll have to do it all with your mouse. So that's location. And the last one is settings. So here, if you notice, you might be wondering, this is only a simple function. There's only one function. Sometimes you'll have nested functions. You'll have, when the logic gets a bit more trickier, you might get nested functions. So then it's easier to also, you know, copy and paste in case you want the list of all the sub functions and other things, everything to be inside and copied. You can actually use this option to copy and paste rather than redoing the whole thing. Yeah, so the last one is the settings. Oh, I don't have the settings page. Never mind. I'll have to create the settings page. Okay, so I'm not going to spend time navigating to all, because you got the idea. As long as you get the idea. Yeah, I didn't save that, so it's not there anyway. So here I'm going to do the info page, for example. So again, the info page, typically I'm going to choose typically I'm going to choose a forms design, which is kind of close to what I want. And I just drag this and drop it into the info page. And probably I just want a few things to be added here. So I'm just going to probably just put info. And I probably don't need this, the label. There's a combo box. So probably I don't need this label in a combo box. So rather than, you know, like deleting these from one by one, you can actually select the whole panel that contains the label and the combo box. And you have the option to choose the delete button. So in this case, I have the label and I have the text box. So I don't need the text box maybe. So I can just delete it. So right now I have a panel that only has labels. So what I'm going to do here is I need to have a few panels, maybe with a few labels. So I'm just going to add this across. You'll get the idea of what I'm trying to do when I feature this out. So I'm going to select the panel that contains the label, copy it, and I'm going to have, paste it on the upper level, the higher level panel. So when I paste it, I automatically have the second panel. I'll probably just paste it about 3 or 4 times. So whenever I click on each of these labels are coming on different panels. So my first label probably would be like, I'm just giving random. Maybe a short video. So over here, I probably will need, to add maybe add some values. So I'm going to just use the same label. And I'm going to just copy it and put it in the same panel. So I'm just going to go one up. So I have 2 labels inside the same panel. So here I'm just going to type and I'm going to do the same thing probably for the rest. So I'll just put some number. And for the video, I'm going to actually drag a video component into that panel. So what I'm going to do is I have different components like, which I have not used besides the label. So I have something called a video component. So I can actually drag this video component and drop it into that label, into that panel. So how do I know that it's inside the panel? Because it's now positioned here. So at any point, if you want to remove this and put it into any other panels, you can actually drag it from here and drop it anywhere. So it's up to you to decide where you want it. So I have something like this, and I just save this before I lose it. So when this page appears, so for example, when I preview this page, so before that, I'll just make sure that I have a back button so that I ensure that I don't get stuck in that page. So the back button will take me to the menu page. Sorry. And I just preview my page. So that's three seconds, a little more on my laptop. And I have the info page. So when I click on the info page, it takes me to, what happened? I didn't save the video. Oh God. Okay. So when it comes to the info page, it's supposed to show me all this. You can change the properties to make it look more prettier and however you want it. So you have the video supposed to come there. So let me or maybe I know why. So when I check my properties, I'll probably just So this is my video, and I'll just make sure that it occupies. I remove all these height and width, and probably leave it, maybe the height, and make it. So I have the option to change the properties by adding values. So the values here are in percentages, just to give some kind of an indication as to what can be entered. Like it can be in pixels, in numbers, pixel format, or in percentage format. So I save this. And typically you'll be able to see the details. But here I want to include this video. So to include this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to YouTube just to get a video. My laptop is really slow today. Okay. So let's choose this. Oops. There you go. Okay, let me choose this. So I'm going to add this video. So I'm going to just right click.
Monzo.com, mate.
Sorry.
No, you know what? I'm not going to say again because they never were, and they're complicated. See, with Monzo.com, making a Gantt chart.
Skip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just right click here, and I'm just going to copy the embed code, because we just want only the source, not the YouTube URL. So I'm going to take that, put it in under my video. I have a property called source. So I just choose this. So if you, what we need here is not the whole frame. We just can, I think I need to increase my screen size a bit. Okay. So what we need here is typically not all these elements. I just need only the source. So I'm going to just delete all this besides the source and leave it at that. So when I preview, okay, I think I do it again. I'll probably just to not conflict, I'll just probably leave the rest. So I'm going to remove the width and the height. So I'll just leave the tag iframe, and I'm going to delete the rest. And I will just leave it till the end of the tag, which is iframe, and save it. So I can preview. So I have my video there and I can play it there. So this is just one part of it. Then I click back. Since we already given the control, it comes back. Likewise, you can do things for your camera. So right now, when I click on the camera, it goes to a blank page because I've not put anything there. And you can actually add, you know, another form or something and put an image there. For example, I mean, I hope you get the general gist of how things work. So typically, let me just get this. So maybe I will copy the info page. So I'll just choose this part, which will be the panels. inside the info page, and I will just copy it and put it in the camera page. So I paste it. So typically what happens here is the camera page has the same elements, but I don't need the video this time. So I'm just going to delete the video. And instead of the video, I'm going to just probably put an image there. So I'm going to just drag this image and drop it inside that panel. So now I have the image in this panel. And of course, I can change the size of the image and the likes. So I'm just changing the size, removing what is already there. So this is the default size of that panel. So it fits inside the panel space. So now I want a scenario where if somebody clicks this button, it's supposed to choose the camera option. So basically it's supposed to click on the camera. So I'm going to use something called a wizard here just to get things easier. So I'm going to use a function wizard where all these basic functions can be done with the function wizard. So this function wizard is a step-by-step kind of indication. So I just have to follow the step. So it says select the event to trigger this action. So it's something like when I click on this, it's supposed to choose that, or rather, wait, just give me a second. I better choose the whole footer on the whole panel inside the footer panel so that it's all taken. Now I'm going to activate the function wizard. So the function wizard has got like an action to do. So it's going to be a basic function, and I click next. So among the basic functions, there are a few like barcode, capture image, get location, blah, blah, blah. So I can choose capture image. And I want to display it inside this component. So display it under that. So there's only one component to display. And the name of that particular component is IMG 099, which is given by the system when I dragged it and dropped it into the page. And once done, it just clicks, I mean, it finishes. So basically the function is done. So this is what happens. So when you see in the action, like based on the function, I mean, based on the object that is chosen, when I click on the action, so this is the so-called logic that has been built by the function wizard. So later, sorry, when Vetri takes over, my colleague takes over, he would probably give you some more explanation on how to actually build these so-called functions. So that's basically where this thing can actually you know, you can add more functions and stuff like that from the 800 odd functions. Okay, so I guess I've covered what I wanted to cover. So basically you can do the same like with settings. You can choose a language. So I mean, I'll probably just do that as well. So I just want to paste. So I'm just pasting whatever is already there. So, or rather, I would rather use this template, the forms template. So I would probably just choose an option just to show you how the language options are used. So I just need this combo box to display languages. So I'm going to delete this label and text box. So I delete the panel. So select the panel that has the label and the text box and delete. So here I'm going to just say language to choose, save. And of course, what we want is when this particular page loads, I want this list of languages to be displayed inside this combo box. And by choosing this, you can probably just change the language to the language of your choice. So before I do that, I will probably need to go to the language options here. So there's a language option, and this language option allows me to add languages. So I'm going to just probably add a new language. Sorry. So I'll just add a language. It says add, so I'll just add Malay. So apart from English, by default, Malay is also added. This is just for the records. So I'll just have one language. And I can actually go and add text. So the text could be, text, maybe back. So the alternative to that, I need to Google. So the alternative is that. So I'm just changing only one to just show you the difference. And of course, so likewise, you can actually add more text. So you can also add more languages. So in case you want Mandarin, you can add Mandarin as well. So you can add a relevant text there. So I'll just put it at just for the records. So once done, you can actually save it, and you can actually go back to your option. So here, what we just make sure that we go back. So we'll just use the go to page when somebody clicks back and goes back to the menu. So there should be, navigation should be completed just to make sure that you don't get stuck on a page. All right, so here I'm going to just load this page. So to load this page, that is, whenever this page loads, after somebody selects the menu settings, it comes to this page. This particular combo box should be populated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the page itself because it's on the load. So the page, I have the load option. And over here is where I'm going to activate all these functionalities. Now, due to lack of time, I'm not going to do it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger the wizard instead to do it for me. So on the page load, I'm going to create a function wizard, which is on the event load. And it's going to be a basic function. And it's going to probably just choose language. And it's going to set the available language in the combo box. So it's going to populate that combo box. The name of that combo box by default is given by the system as CB field 1. And I just leave it at that and I click finish. So typically what happens is, let's just run only this page. So I'm just changing this page to settings and preview. So when I run this page, so my default page now is only this page. I'm not running through the whole process. So I have the option to choose my language, but nothing happens because I have not said what is there to happen. So I'll have to ensure that whenever somebody changes the language, so the moment some changes are made, so just to let you know, this one you normally could do it manually also to have more control. not just this, but other things. So this is how the the combination works. So you just get language list. So you get a list of all the languages, and you store it inside the combo options. Like basically, set combo options is the function that stores all this, it populates this. Now the point here is when you use these functions and start using it at any point, you can always get help from the help source. But when you start using this, you'll understand that rather than depending on the wizard, like what I'm doing now, you can actually do it yourself. Like it'll be easier once you understand how to use these functions. Okay, so coming back to this, so when somebody changes this, you would like to change the language itself. So the back should be changed to whichever language you chose, for example. So this event cannot be a click, it has to be a change. It's not like somebody clicks there, it changes. So it has to be when somebody changes the language option, it's supposed to change. So I'm going to choose the function wizard, and okay, I'm going to use click. So I'm going to, my wizard is only showing the click, so I'll just use the click here and then change it and copy that into the change event. So I'm going to use basic function. I use a language again, and here I have the option to change the active language, and in this case the active language is going to come from the component value, which is CB field 1, and after which it would finish. So this one function was done on the click. So if you notice, it's done on the click. So I need to copy this and put it on the change event. So I'm using a shortcut, getting the help of the wizard to get this. So if you notice, there's one more reload option. So this reload is after you change, the changes have to be refreshed. So it doesn't refresh, so you need to reload it to see the changes. So I need to copy this as well into my change option. So I click inside this box and paste. So it has copied all these functions in here. Now I just preview this page. So I only provided for data, for the, okay, something is wrong.
Yeah, Shamil. So for the language setting, you configured right for the back. Can you check on this? The language setup, the language tab. Yeah. The place where you said the back translation, Google translation. You said right in the language.
The language setting was set in the load.
Yeah, that one is a function. I'm talking about the language you mapped, right? You map the Malay word for English, right? So that place, yeah. Can
okay.
You go
so I mean, maybe let's not waste time. I'll let you handle this. But before I go, like maybe if anyone has got any questions, please feel free to raise it so that if I can answer, I will answer, or give it to Vetri to answer. Anybody's got any questions? No questions?
Seems no.
Okay, so I guess I mean, my time is kind of limited, so I will stop at this point. But generally, the gist is to get this introduction through. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask. There's a question, is it? Yeah, any questions, please ask. So if you notice, there is a reason why I did the initial introduction. I'm not a developer. I'm a sales guy, and I have I mean, my knowledge of programming is backdated 20 years ago. I was a Java developer, but at this stage, I have no idea about any form of development. So what I'm trying to tell you is, even if a person who doesn't really know programming is able to actually understand and do things. So I wanted to actually demonstrate that. So that is one of the reasons why I initiated the first session, so that you could actually gel well with me. For the second session, which is going to be handed over to Vetri, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask him as well. We'll have like a 10-15-minute session at the end of all the sessions. And then you can also ask your questions there as well. Okay, got it. So I guess, Vetri, maybe you can actually also cover this, like build, and later when you finish everything. So Eric, just before that, do your participants need a break of 5 minutes or something?
Yeah, I think they definitely need some break.
Okay.
Is it okay we give them maybe 10 minutes breaks? So everyone please come back at 11:45. Is it okay?
Sure.
Yeah. So we give everyone a break. So we will come back at 11:45.
Okay.
See you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good morning to everyone. So I would like to thank you guys to listening this orientation session for eMOBIQ. Okay, for last 1.5 hours, Shamil provided the orientation regarding the eMOBIQ, more on the design perspective. So I hope we understand already how the eMOBIQ platform work and how we can design the pages, and how we can incorporate the logic, how we can adopt the business logic inside the app. More on the design perspective, we learned already from the Shamil session. So now what I'm going to share here, is more on the data web API steps. So how we can communicate with the backend system using our eMOBIQ. So actually, the 3 hours is not really enough to explain all the features of eMOBIQ. We have some more other interesting stuff to explore in the eMOBIQ platform, like QR code, and we have plugins, and we have connectors and all these stuffs. So now we are going to see how we can establish the connection between our mobile to backend, any backend. So usually how the eMOBIQ is designed, like to easily we can connect this eMOBIQ into any third-party system or the ERP, like Microsoft Business Central and SAP, and so other ERPs like Sage and everything. So Acumatica. So these are the ERPs. We have a specialized connector in order to connect to the backend system. So not only for the ERP, we can integrate to any third-party system. So maybe I will share my screen to explore these stuffs. Yeah. Okay. I hope you guys see my screen. I'm logging into the eMOBIQ now. So I can see in the homepage my application under. I created the applications. So I'm just creating a new application called App Test API, and I select the compiler. Cordova description also I provided the same. Okay, fine. So we already saw how to create the pages and everything, right? So there is another part here in the header. We can see the tab called services. So under these services, actually what we can do, we can play around the data. Yeah. So these are we can call it like these are the connectors and components we can use in order to store the data and we can establish the connection using the web API. Okay, so there are two major storage tables we are using in our eMOBIQ. One is the local table and another one is the SQLite table. So the SQLite is the default database engine we have inside our mobile. So usually it will use to store, we used to store the large size of data. For the local table is to maintain the small size of data. Let's say in the system we can tell as primary storage and secondary storage, right? Similar way, we can call the local table as primary storage. So this information will store into the cache of the application. And secondary storage, it's allowed to store large number of data. It depends on the requirement. So if our app required to store more data, we can use SQLite table. Otherwise, we can perform the operation based on local table itself. We can satisfy with local table. Yeah. So, but by adding this local table and SQL table, depending upon the requirement, so here we can see the list of components available on the left side. So you just drag and drop. Let's say I just want to add the local table, then you can just drag and drop the local table. Here you can see the parameters that we need to configure for the local table. So usually L_user. I just create a one local table for the user, and you can create a field also. Let's say I'm creating a field called username and mobile and email. Yeah. So these are the three fields I created in the under the local table. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use only the local table. For the functions, right, inside eMOBIQ, we are using the functions in order to perform the operations against the table things, right? So it's common for SQLite and local table. So if you want to insert, we use the same function to insert the record into the local table and SQLite table. So there is no difference of using the function for performing table-related operations. But just for information, I'm telling how we can add the SQLite table. Just drag the SQLite table from the components. You can add like this. Yeah. So these are the parameters to configure the is required to configure the SQLite tables. You can see the name and there is the auto load option and fields. This auto load option, everything you can description, you can find it on the help file. Usually auto load we use to load automatically into the page, and unique key, each line it will automatically generate the unique key. We can use this unique key as a primary key to perform any table related activities. I'm deleting this now. Yeah. So mostly majority of the apps, we prefer to use only these two tables in order to store the data and retrieve the data from to display any page of the app. Yeah. So just for the example, I created the local table called L_user. I created three fields here. Okay. So now we will see how we can establish the connection between the backend and this stuff. Okay. So for communicate to the backend system, we need a one backend third party system, right? So we can test with the Google Firebase. Yeah. So the Google Firebase actually we can instantly create a third part like a one NoSQL backend, which we use to store the information to demonstrate the application. Yeah. So I'll just tell you the steps how we can create a database in the Google Firebase. Now, this one, right? You can find this reference for creating a table, creating a database into the Google Firebase. You can refer. There are a lot of resources available in YouTube as well. So what we have to do, we have to go to the Google and you search it Firebase. Yeah. So there is a console for Firebase. There is a first link you can see here. Then okay, there is an option, go to console. you can see on the right, top right. So if you go to the console, definitely this need a one Gmail account to proceed. So there are a lot of file-based project I already created. So for this purpose, I'm just creating a new project called test API. Okay. So I'm just creating a project here. And there will be some process here in order to complete the process. So it started creating a project. So the objective of this creation of project in Firebase, right? So we don't have any active backend in order to show the web API process. So that is the reason we instantly creating a one new backend to communicate with eMOBIQ. Yeah. So it's take a few seconds. So you can see the message called your project, new project is ready, right? You can click continue. Okay, so after you click continue, then you can see the dashboard page for your newly created project. So under this build left side menu, we can see the real-time database. So if you click the real-time database, yeah, you can see your database creation page. So you have to create a database from here. So it will usually ask the real-time database location. So which location you want to create a database. Then if you want to add the security roles also we can add. So once you create, then start in lock mode. So if you have if you create with the lock mode, you cannot able to read and write. So the rules itself you can see here, read and write is restricted in the lock mode. So you have to create in the test mode. Yeah. So test mode will allow you to read and write the information for certain days, like 30 days until that. Yeah. So if you want to extend, then you can extend by editing the project later. Yeah. So I'm just enabling this creation of database in the test mode, so that so that it will ask you the confirmation again. So now we can see it's created the database. Actually, the main difference between the SQL database and this NoSQL real-time database, right? So in the SQL, the data are storing into the row and column, but in this real-time database, there is no restriction for having a exact number of rows and number of columns. So all the data will store into the JSON format, so that we can. This is the very latest database algorithm technology in order to store the data. Yeah. So we can see here, right? So this one is the API. This one is the API base URL. So from here, we will start to connect the app in order to create the records. Okay. So I will side by side, I will show you how we will inserting the record into the Google Firebase. Then we can show the inserted record into the console. Yeah, I will show you one by one. Okay. So now we already created the local table, right? I'm just saving the local table. Okay. Then I'm going to the eMOBIQ page. Okay, sorry. Before that, I'm also adding the raw connector. So why we are using this raw connector? So as I told, we have a connectors in order to connect to the backend system. So since this Firebase is we can consider as a third-party system, it's not a ERP backend. So we can use this raw connector in order to connect to the Firebase. Let's say your backend system is any ERP, then we have a specialized connector. Let's say for the Navision, right? You can see that the connector called Nav connector. Then if it is a SAP B1, then you can see the SAP B1 connector. Similar, like we have a Sage and Acumatica connector. So we have a specialized connector in order to connect to the eMOBIQ. Since our backend is the Firebase, it's a general third-party system. We can use raw connector in order to connect to the backend. Yeah. So I'm just renaming it a raw Firebase. Okay, raw Google. Okay, fine. So in the URL, I'm just providing this URL. Yeah, which we got it from the console. Okay. So that's it. So we configured the connector already. So using this connector, we can start the operation in order to insert and retrieve the data from the backend. Yes. Okay. So I'm going back to the home page. Then I'm just creating a sample page in order to show the data. I'm just creating PG list, meaning we are creating a page to list down the data from the backend system. Yes. Okay. So this PG list I'm trying to add the template from the listing screen. Let's say I'm using the field service. Yeah, and just drag and drop this template. Okay. Okay, fine. So I just drag and drop the template here. Yes. Okay, so you can see the contents and the folder, everything. So inside we have each we no need this, actually we need only one is enough for us to create a data list. Okay, fine. So the image we are not going to show, then we can remove the image. Okay, fine. Okay, so for this one, I just I'm just renaming for user name, username, and this one for mobile, this one for email. I'm just editing the name. Okay, I'm saving the changes now. Okay, for in this page, this one we can change like user list. Okay, so in this page, I'm clicking the page component. Then right side, you can see the options. Okay, I'm selecting the load option. So here I'm adding a raw call. So raw call, I'm using the connector called raw Google, and path. I use user.json. So usually, right, the user.json, it try to retrieve the user table, but currently we don't have any table called user, right? So it will return no data actually. So we will try, yes. But for this design perspective, right, we have to add the data list to show the data. I'm adding the data list here. I'm just putting the container inside the data list. The properties, BL users, yeah. Dataset I set as user, meaning for this data list, I'm assigning the dataset. So I created the data list called DL_users. I'm assigning the dataset called L_user. Meaning to say, when the page load, it will show you the list of users in what we have in the backend. Yes. So after adding this, actually we have to set the value from the table. So we have a field called username, right? So we have to mention it in the field. And this one we have mobile, and this one is the email. Yeah. So this is how we have to bind the field. in the page, the data list components. Okay, so now we are going to call the raw call. Yeah, so we are trying to retrieve. Yeah, this one is the click, right? We can see in the load action we already have we call the user.json, right? I just provide the method as a get. Usually the get option will try to retrieve the data from backend. Yeah, so then after this we have to get the response in the S callback, in the raw call S. So based on this, we can start building our logic. Let's say we have I'm just, okay. So you can see here, I'm just deleting this and I'm just putting the console in order to show the data. Yeah. In the S callback. Console meaning is just kind of a print. Yeah. So input, it will input a parameter, it will give the output from the API. Yeah. So I'm just saving the changes here. I'm just trying to run the app, but before that we have to, since it's a new app, we have to set this page list as a default page in the global configuration. So you can see the app default page, right? I set it as PG list, then I'm saving the changes. Okay, so now I can able to run. Yeah, so actually if you want to see the action for performing the API call, right? So we added the PG list, right? So when you try to run the app, it will automatically open that field. Okay, so now we can see the in the network activity, you can see the API call called the user.json. So it will try to retrieve the data from the backend by calling this URL, and path is user.json and method is get. But in the preview, you can see there is no data because in the backend we don't have a data actually. Yeah, so the data table is empty. So what we can do, I will okay, in the eMOBIQ home, in the PG list page, this one, I will change this icon first to make to navigate into the add page of the records. I'll just changing an icon like this instead of search. Then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do the action by clicking go to page. Go to page called PG data. Yeah. So PG data page, we are going to create a components to store the data into the backend. Okay, I'm saving the changes now. So I'm just creating a new page called PG data. Okay, inside the PG data, the properties you have to change PG data. Okay, the list also has the list of the change, right? PG data. So in the PG data, I'm just adding the templates of detail screen. Form screen. Okay, so I'm just adding the form. Okay, so this is the latest form screen we can see, and I'm just deleting the existing unwanted stuffs from the template. Okay, so there is a username and I'm just changing this as a mobile and this as a email. Okay, this as mobile. Okay, so this one is the EDT username and this one is the EDT mobile and this one is the EDT email. Okay, so the save action, we actually will save the, okay, so in the action, you can call the same raw call to store the data. For this purpose, we are using the same one, path, same user.json, method is post. Option you can see, we have to add the options and headers similar like Postman we used to do the web records, right? So we have to add the as true and header we have to add the to array function to maintain the headers. So this is how we have to configure the raw call in order to post the data. Yes, we found already. So in the data function, we have to call to object to get this information. Username, mobile, email. Okay, so this one inside this function we have to call the component value. So let's say for example, here I'm inserting and just hard coding 1, 2, 3. Okay, username as a user1, mobile number as 5667788, and email user1 at gmail.com. Yeah, I'm just hard coding the values from here. So I'm calling this action in the save. Now we will see how it's inserting the data. Okay, I'm clicking this. Then, so this is the way we have to key in the input and we can retrieve upon the API call. So I'm just clearing this stuff to show, okay, how it's working. See, when you try to insert, post the record, right, it will return the unique key for confirming the insert operation. So now if you see in the console, you can see the actual inserted data. So now you can see here, this one is the created just now from the mobile. Yeah. So this is how we used to communicate. So now these 3 parameters is inserted already into the database, right? So we can retrieve. So for example, let's say if you retrieve from the, if you go to the user page, right? You can see the action of calling the API. So this is the API action. You can see the information on we are retrieving the data from the backend. Yeah. So this is how we have to play around the data by retrieving. So for the Google Firebase, right? You can also perform the delete operation and update operation. So this is the unique key for the record. So based on this, you can perform any kind of CURD operations. We usually call a CURD like create, update, delete, and read. Yeah, so these kind of operations we can perform. This is just a sample to demonstrate how we can communicate the backend system using our eMOBIQ. Yeah. So apart from these web API services, our eMOBIQ also support the webhook in order to listen the web services response. Yeah. So our eMOBIQ platform is more enhanced features we have for the perspective of sending and retrieving the data in a more secure way. Also, we have a default function called encrypt and decrypt so that we can store the data. So let's say we can ask, right, we are storing the data, right? How secure this data? Yeah. So we have a native function to decrypt and encrypt the data in order to store into the local table. Even though if other apps have access to access the data, right? So from the database or from the cache, right? So they cannot able to, yeah. So we have a tighten the security, like adding these kind of functions in our eMOBIQ logic. Yeah. So apart from this, by achieving the request response using the web services, right? It depends on the requirement. Let's say, yeah, how we are integrating into the backend. Yeah, so this is depends on the requirement. So this is how we used to connect the backend system, and we will show the information by retrieving from the backend. Yeah. So for this, right? So let's say how we can process this, like we are getting the data, retrieving the data from backend, then we will store into the local table, then we are displaying into the mobile page. So all the UI related operations we are achieving in the eMOBIQ design perspective page. So from there we can delete and we can give an option in the UI in order to call the APIs based on the process. Yeah. So this is how we used to play around the data from the backend. Yeah. So normally, right? So this web API, I can say is a less secure, but this one, sorry, I mean like the backend have a less security. So for the backend, right? Even though in the Firebase you can add up more security so that you cannot easily access the data. You know, like. For the raw call, it supports the cross domain similar like we should have authentication in order to access the data. The raw call supports that feature as well. So meaning in the when we create a database in the real-time database, right? So we saw already the security features. We skip the security features in order to show the process, but we can add up the security features to secure the data so that in the raw call also you cannot easily able to connect to read and write the data from the backend. So we have to do the proper authentication to fetch and pull back the data into the any backend. So each ERP backend, they have their own security setup. So in order to access their data. So all we can say our eMOBIQ can adapt supports all the security features in order to perform the data related operations. Yes. So I think this session is more useful for you guys to understand about these eMOBIQ features and how we can retrieve data. So apart from that, there are a lot of native functionalities we can see in the eMOBIQ, like in the component itself, in the service itself, you can see there are payment plugins. We can see there are MC payment plugins, eNets payment connector we have, PayPal connector we have. Also, we can generate the pay now QR kind of stuff. So we already have a predefined function for all these kind of payments. Yeah. So apart from this, we also have a push notification feature. This is the in-app notification. So we can create a notification in the eMOBIQ to notify to the user. Yeah. So there are certain procedure to configure the notification. So usually for all the apps, right, even though it's Android native, Android Studio, we have to depends on the notification provider. So usually what we suggest in order to implement this notification eMOBIQ, right, we usually ask to create a same Firebase account for the notification purpose. So the Firebase is also providing this notification feature in order to incorporate into the app, so that we can create a in-app notification, so that for the same app, multiple users can able to communicate by using notification. Yeah. So this feature also we have under this. And we have a NFC reader. Okay, so the NFC reader is a very advanced technology, so that we can easily the mobile, if mobile supports the NFC, if mobile support the NFC, right, we can implement this by using these NFC related functions. Yes. So for the languages, right, when Shamil showed the demo, languages things is not working right. Actually, the languages is not get updated here. You can see, yeah, this one is a new app, but the Shamil app, right, he's not saving the things for the proper Malay word for the back. So that is the purpose it's not showing. Yeah. So this language option also is additional features for we have in eMOBIQ. And so once you've done all these stuffs, right, the final thing is building the app. So building the app is the final thing we usually do. How we are maintaining the versions. So these versions, so we have a app version into the top of the panel. You can see the app version called 1.0.0, right? So this app version can be auto managed by platform itself. When you try to release the app, automatically user will get the notification to update the app. Yes. So we have this setting also inside the configuration. So if you see here, enable auto update. So if you enable this, when you try to release the app, automatically user will get the notification. Yeah. Then how we can build the app? We have an option here to build the app. You can see build Android and iOS, right? Once you click this, we have a pop-up like this. So we can see the mode, which mode you want to build the app. So usually for all the changes we made, right, we usually release the release. So versioning, how we can manage, it is a major version or minor version or something. So we have a version called 1.0.0, right? If you select the major, it will impact on this first digit. If it is a minor, it will impact on the second one. And patch meaning is the last one. We can say major dot minor dot patch. Yeah. So this is how we will increase the versioning based on the changes we made it into the app. Then if you want to release only for the Android, here we have an option to select. So which one you want. You can only build the app into the iOS. You can only build the app in the Android. Then both you can also select. So once you start build, right, in the log history, you can see the progress of building the app. So this is how we usually build. And you can ask what are the other modes we can use. This debug and development mode we can use for the development purpose. So let's say for the debug mode and development mode, it will not increase the versioning. So if you select the development, automatically you cannot see any information related to the versioning. So it will not increase the versioning, so that the current user, they will not get update, because still it's on the development stage. So this development release and all we can use for our internal testing. Yeah, for the debug and development we can use for our internal testing. So this is how we used to build the apps in our eMOBIQ. After we design, we complete all the process designing and logics, everything for the app. Yeah. So finally, we done the building, right? So we can see the message. We can see the message called build got successfully. Yeah, something like this. So after that, we have to share the URL in order to download for the users. So how we will share? Our eMOBIQ have a own app store. Yeah, so you can see, and each app have a unique ID, right? So maybe I'm having this app, right? So you can see. I just copying the app ID. Then I'm going to the home page. There is in the right side top, we can see the button called eStore. This is the exclusive eStore app store we are having for eMOBIQ apps. Yes. So currently there is no application got built actually under my account. So that is the reason it's not showing any applications. But let's say I am okay. So if I build the app, right, automatically you can show the list of applications you can see. Yeah. So for example, okay, I'm just show you how the download link will work. Okay, so we have to send this kind of URL for the user to download. Yeah. So let's say we are sending this URL, right? User can go into their mobile. They can browse this URL in the mobile browser, so that we can see the download option here. But our current app, we doesn't release any version, right? That is the reason we cannot see. Usually how we will see, we can see the options. Either you want to download Android version or iOS version. Yeah. So based on the mobile, we can download the APK or yeah, Android iOS provisioning called IPK something. Yeah. So we can download and we can start install them. We can start use the app. So this is how eMOBIQ build and downloading app logic is working behind the platform. Yeah. So I think I hope this session is more helpful for you guys to understand the features and how we can build, how we can design, how we can communicate to the backend system using our eMOBIQ, and how we can send the app link for in order to download for the users. Yeah. So I hope these areas we have a much understanding about our eMOBIQ platform. Okay, so now I will invite Shamil in order to close. Before that, before closing my session, I request you guys to rise if you have any questions. Yes. Okay, can I have some questions? Any questions from participants? Okay, I can see. So
Hi,
for
everyone. Do you have any question to ask them? Do you know, do you have any question that you wanted to know? You can ask in the chat room.
okay. So for no questions.
So far no question, then we will proceed.
Okay. Shamil, are you there?
Yeah, Vetri. So I just wanted to add one more piece of information. So for those who are, building apps for the hackathon, for the current one, you'll be probably just restricted to build for Android. But assuming that you want to build it for iOS, then you'll have to share the custom package, which has to be sent to us. So we could actually, you need an enterprise license for that. So we'll probably have to share, use our license to compile your iOS version. And there's another thing I wanted to share. That's Eric. I have shared some links. You can also feel free to share it with the rest of the participants. Like basically, there's references for past training videos as well as the PPT for reference.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so typically today we just wanted to give you some sort of an orientation. It was not what you call to make you all like specialists in eMOBIQ, because that's not possible within that 3-hour slot that was offered. So I guess it's a good start, because the main thing is it's about using the platform. If you don't use the platform, you might find it a bit tricky, but the more you start using the platform, and for those who are quite savvy, passionate about trying out things, this will give you a very good avenue for finding some very interesting things. And of course, feel free, like what I said, like it's all about just sending us a note, and we'll be happy to share this. If Eric, if there is a need, then we could also have some sort of mentoring sessions. In case the groups need some mentoring sessions, maybe they could request for it, and then we could probably have some mentoring sessions as well.
Okay, Kat. Thanks. Is it everything done from our side?
Yeah, I guess we have kind of completed the orientation.
Okay, good. Okay, so if everything is done here, I think from the side, then we could actually end the session. So if there's so for all the participants, if you have any question or any request, you can go to our website, and there's a help desk. You can ask question there, or you can refer anything in the WhatsApp group as well. Okay, so any updates on the challenge, we will also update in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so if there's no any other question, then we shall end the session. Thank you so much to Shamil and Vetri for your time, and also for the participants. I know you all have class, and you all take times to actually come to this session. So please, we shall end the session now. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.